Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I am with martial artist and friend MJ Singh. He runs Empower Martial Arts with 3 locations. So, MJ, thanks for coming here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's nice to have you in the studio since you're only about an hour drive away. So, whenever I can have people actually come in and sit with me, it's always way better. So I know before we started recording here, you were telling me a little bit about your origin story and how you got started. So for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I was born in India. I was born Punjab, which is the northern part of India. Came here when I was 6, so English is my second language.
Mm.
Punjabi obviously is first, and being an immigrant, it was hard adjusting, right? Because you don't know language, you don't know, what people are saying. Even in school, I struggled a little bit, and then around 1998, I started martial arts, where we saw a big grand opening sign. We lived in an apartment complex at that time, so it was me, and my sister, and then my neighbors who are also 2 girls. So they
Mhm.
started. Uh, and we walked in and we didn't know what to what to expect. At the time, I had long hair. I was really skinny, and my instructor actually thought I was, a girl with the with the 3 other girls, with my sister and our 2 neighbors. And he was like, "Man, I love teaching, girls because they focus, they're more flexible, they're fast." And I was like, "Hey, I love learning from female instructors. They just teach better."
Damn,
So
so you clap back on him really quick. That's funny.
yes. So it was an awesome, awesome experience. I just from that first couple of times taking class with him, I got hooked on to martial
Mm.
arts, and that's my instructor's name is Chris Bro. He owns an awesome school in New Jersey still, and he just put in a really good vision for us. A really good. He was able to do kip ups and spin kicks and cartwheels and all that stuff. At the same time, he's making a positive impact. So by the time I was 12, I was like, man, this is what I want to do.
Damn, you knew when you were 12 years old that martial arts would be a career that you'd pursue.
Yeah, it was just
Wow.
a really cool it felt like a really cool lifestyle, right? Especially with my instructor where, he would just empower us. He would inspire us. So I was like, man, this is such a cool experience. So in the beginning I wasn't very good, right? I was having a hard time keeping up. So he's like, "Hey man, why don't you come assist some classes?" I literally would ride my bike from my apartment complex, right? Because my parents both immigrants. My dad was uh working in New York City as a taxi driver. My mom was working at McDonald's, right, local restaurant. And I would literally ride my bike, would take my bike, put it in the back of the dojo, and then I'd just stay for all the classes, all the little kids classes, all the way to pretty much the teen and adult class.
Was there cultural differences in martial arts, or were they worried about you getting in martial arts? I don't know how it's viewed
Yeah.
in your region of India where your family's from.
So, um, where we're from, they really value, teachers, coaches,
Okay,
almost like apprentice. So they
cool.
saw it as a high value. But they also in India, they call, as far as career wise, they either want you to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer,
Mm,
right? So education is really, really important. So I was like, hey, this is one I want later on. I was like, this is what I want to do full time. And my mom was like, hey, just get your degree first and then decide. So
mm.
that's what happened later. I went to Rutgers, even though I know I wanted to do this. I did a double bachelor's in economics and psychology, which was amazing. Rutgers was a great decision. As soon as that finished, I went back to I had a intern at Merrill Lynch. I had a job offer at Bank of America. This is back in
Oh,
2000.
wow, that's something we, share in common. I interned at Merrill Lynch also.
Cool. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is back in like 2009 when it was hard to get a job anywhere, right? During the Great Depression, pretty much. So I had a job offer, and then my instructor was like, "Hey, man, just come work full time." And we did that. And the same time, then I started doing a lot of private lessons. I started working with special needs students, and that kind of just took off.
So were you working on another job at that time or just martial arts?
Just martial arts. I was just working for my instructor, doing private lessons, and 2009 went into summer camp for students with special needs. So that's kind of how they loved the program, and they wanted me to keep going with it. So we did a when there was nothing else going on, like on a Sunday, I would run some private. So there was a point where I was working 6 7 days a week just because this is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to build a nice strong base, and that's paying dividends now.
Yeah, how much money were you making at that time?
I don't remember.
Okay.
um, maybe, 30, 40 grand as base salary, and then, doing private lessons all day Sunday, and then special needs classes. And the goal was, my dad at the time went through the health, challenges. Went through, he had a triple bypass surgery, so he couldn't work in New York anymore. So he's kind of retired. So a lot of the financial burdens of running a house kind of fell on my shoulders.
Oh,
So
got
I
it.
was like, I just gotta, make it happen. This is what I love, and can I wait? Can I figure out a way to do this and still take care of the family?
How did you convince your parents? Like, obviously, they have the immigrant mindset where it's like, hey, doctor, attorney,
Yeah.
one of those areas. How did you convince them that, like, obviously, you went and did school, but you still are going to do martial arts as a career, which I'm sure they didn't see money signs in their eyes from that, right?
Right.
So, how did you convince them of that?
I think just had a really good like heart to heart with my mom, right?
Okay.
So she's the one that was like, "Hey, go, you can't go to community college. You got to go to university." So I was like, "Hey, I'll listen. I'll do what you want me to do, but then you got to also have a little trust in what I see the potential is." And I saw the potential at a young age of, you can make really good money in the martial arts, and you can have really high quality students. And that's what that was what I was chasing after.
Very cool. So, how long did it take you to go from working for this guy to opening up your own?
So the cool thing with my instructor is he let me run those programs while I was still working for him. So imagine me working from Monday through Thursday and Saturday, and then Friday when nothing was going on, I was able to use the school kind of almost like a partnership. As long as I took care of everything he needed, he allowed me to create this side income because he knew I'm not doing anything other than helping try to take care of my family, right? Because that's the difference between I think America, even some American cultures is for us, we stay with our parents pretty much, right? The parents move in with the guy,
Yeah.
right? The daughter might move out and move in, but pretty much in Indian culture, you take care of your elders, right? I'm sure
Yeah. They stay with you for a long
they
time.
stay,
Yeah.
right? And even sometimes the third generation will stay, right? Even if we look back at home, right, you'd have grandparents, uncle, aunts, all kind of in that old home, right? The
Yeah.
historical home. So knowing the background where I come from, where sometimes the light would go out, sometimes you won't have warm water, and then you get the opportunity to come here and you could, you know, crush it and do do all the things you want to do, and instantly we have AC, we have heat, we have light. It just it's a different type of edge, right? Bedros Keuilian talks about this in I think one of his books called The
Yeah.
Immigrant Edge, where you just think differently, you just move differently than sometimes if you're born here, you might take it, not saying everybody, but you might just look at things a little different, that's all.
So your instructor allowed you to open up another business while he was paying you to run his martial arts business?
So I wouldn't say another business, but he gave me the freedom to, he's like, okay, if you want to run that program, as long as everything is, you're able to do all the work you're doing here, then you could run this program on the
When
side.
you say this program, what do you mean by that?
The special needs program.
Okay,
So it
so
didn't
it
interfere with any of his programs or anything like that.
okay, so you were paid for that directly through whatever
Yeah.
business you generated through the okay. And then how did that leap all the way to your own school?
So that was 2009.
Yeah.
Then I spoke with my instructor saying, "Hey, I would love to open up a school." He obviously just went through this really hard time of 2008, 2009, where we actually moved around that time. We went from where we were to a different location. And I was like, "Hey, are we ready to do another location?" Obviously, he wasn't ready just because he came back. It just came out of that hard. I'm sure, if you speak to your brother and all those guys around 2008, 2009, where especially if you're in New Jersey close to New York City, you lost 30, 40, 50% of your student base. So he was like, "Hey, I'm good here, but you have my blessing if you want to go open up a school." So uh originally I just subleased the space, kind of like, what you recommend. I was still working for my instructor 4 or 5 days a week, and I subleased the space once a week
Mm,
in the location in the town I wanted to be in.
cool.
And the way that worked is slowly that went to 2 days a week, then 3 days a week. That was the end of 2011. And we stayed there pretty much until June 2014. Went to
Mm.
3 days, 4 days, and eventually 5 days while I was cutting back the days I was working for my instructor. And then we opened a full time location June 2024 with around 80, 90 students. Sorry,
June.
June
I was like, next
2014.
year, damn.
June 2014.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And that was our first location, and built that up. Then our second location we opened up February 2019, so a year pretty much before the pandemic, and then we opened up our third location August 2022.
Cool. Very cool. So, what obviously you had that immigrant's edge, which is awesome. Like, hey, I could do this for a living. I can make it work. I have to go to college, right? Like, mom is making you
Yeah,
do that part of it, which I think is great. I also think it helps mature you a little bit. Like, if you're just learning life through a martial arts school, it's very isolating,
yeah,
right? But when you see other people work other jobs, do other hard things, you're like, huh, maybe what I do isn't that hard, right?
right.
So when you went to go from one school and you went to grow that one right from the beginning, were you using all the same strategies that your instructor taught you? Did you learn from martial arts business conferences? Like, where
Yeah.
did you learn to
So
actually
at that
run it?
time, I'm trying to be a really good student. So even before that, by the time I was a teenager, right, my instructor would take me to UP events, United Professional events with Greg Silva. So there was times where I was in the same, we were probably in the same room. And I was probably in the same room with Solomon,
Yeah.
your brother, and stuff like that. And that was when I was a teenager. I was 13, 14, 15.
Wow.
And then after that, once I went on my own, I would, attend all the my events, any opportunity I had to learn, I was being a good student, right? Where else? Fred De Palma was a good resource when I first started out, because he's got 8 schools, kind of similar model, small school, one full timer, two full timers, one part timer. And yeah, a lot of the strategies was obviously from my instructor, right? The
Cool.
internal strategies and all that stuff came directly from him.
I think it's great that you got a lot of things from outside just your instructor because a lot of times someone will have their school that they opened with, or that's sorry, that they trained at. They love it so much they want to open up their own. But they don't necessarily know if the person who taught them used the right business strategies or if they're even financially successful or what they think is financially successful, whatever that means to that person. So they'll just copy all their strategies and then they're like, wait a minute, I'm not where I want to be. And it's
Right.
like, well, you copied the wrong person, right? You got to find the right person. But you obviously, as a teenager, stepped out of that uh, you know, that circle of influence in your school and found it elsewhere. So I think
Right.
that's really important, really
Th
cool.
and I was blessed. The school I was part of was a successful school, right?
Okay.
4 or 500 students. They were doing big numbers in 2013. So it wasn't like
So you knew
yeah.
that they were doing well.
Yeah, yeah, because I was a big part of it, right?
Okay.
I was the head instructor there. So, um, business systems wise, I got lucky. Like, sometimes you go into a martial arts school and you hit the lottery. And
Yeah,
that's kind of how I felt when, if you compare or, you look at, you could have ended up anywhere, right? It's those small decisions that, put you in the right trajectory or the wrong trajectory, right?
right.
You and me could have walked into any martial arts school and we would have been in a different place if we went to the wrong school,
Absolutely.
right? So I was definitely walked into the right school, definitely had the right instructor. So all those things I think played a big role in going from, one location to 3 locations, big time.
So how'd you get the money to open up your first one?
I
Like,
just
obviously, it was slow over time. Was that just like you just made your own money and slowly built up until you had enough money to pay for everything?
Yeah, so I always been a good saver, so, whatever once, family stuff was taken care of, when, all the responsibility was taken care of, any extra private lessons, any extra special needs, I would just put to the side because I knew what I was saving for. I was saving to open up my own school, right? Same thing in when we subleased that space, right? It wasn't crazy rent. It started off like maybe $500 to by the time we were done, 1,500, $2,000. So rent wasn't that bad. And we had at high point, 80 students at the time. So that was probably the most percentage wise, the best percentage we ever had is subleasing a space.
Yeah, you mean like
Uh,
net percentage
yeah,
of
net
yeah,
percentage. Yeah.
yeah,
But literally in the beginning, we had to put the mats down every day, right? It was like a CPR facility. They used to teach CPR classes,
okay.
advanced nursing classes, and they had tables. So we literally had to fold tables up, put chairs in the closet. We had mats in the corner. We had to lay them out. So it was me and my head instructor at the time, who's still the head instructor at our first location. It was us two putting down mats, tightening them up, literally before classes, and we did that for maybe 6 to 9 months. And then we're like, "Hey, does it make sense for us to actually sell the mats to the business that was subleasing to us?"
Mhm, okay, and then how long do you think it took you before you're like, "Okay, I'm making good money," and I'm ready to open up the second one. I know it was years in between,
Yeah.
but at one point were you like, how many years in were you like, damn, I feel good about this?
I mean, the cool thing is because we started with such a strong base at at subleasing, that allowed us to save a good amount of money to really do well when we went and opened a school. So as soon as we went from subleasing to a full-time location, our numbers went, pretty much doubled,
Right. Okay.
right? So
Cool.
I
Because you
felt,
already figured out the
yeah,
systems without the high pressure of lots of bills because you were renting or subleasing a space from CPR.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I always recommend that. Obviously, you and I have talked about it before, which is, hey, if you're opening up your first school, one of the best ways to do it is figure out what neighborhood you want to be in. But then after that, just rent out like a small rec center. Now, it's not, it should be temporary, and they should know that it's temporary. But if you do that, then you'll be able to build all the skill sets and get all to run the business and figure out where all your holes are, be able to plug those holes and figure out the right processes so that when you do open a regular school and you have big expenses like rent and electric and all that, that's really like a lot of money. You're not just bleeding out every day,
right,
right?
right,
And you have members that you have tuition, you can just roll over into that.
right.
And it's just like it's like a baby step, right? And if you opened martial arts schools multiple times before, then it's like you probably don't need to do that,
Yeah.
right? Unless you want to test a new area or test a new instructor. I think it's great for that. But especially in the beginning, I think it's a really good way to dip your toe in the water
Yeah,
before you jump in.
you're constantly reinvesting back into the school, and it's not a big stress because one of the things I see in a lot of schools is they'll take on this big space, this big rent, and
Yep.
they're not making profit for a year or two, right?
Yep.
So that's something I saw I didn't want to do. I want to keep it simple, anywhere from 1,500 2,500 square feet, and not go above that.
Mm. So whenever I have someone who works in the martial arts industry, I'm always excited because you work very closely with kids. You're a big part of their life, their parents as well. So there's always like crazy things that happen when you like run a martial arts school. And really if you just work with kids in general, but martial arts school is a career like outside of regular traditional school, there's always like war stories, right? Or things that happen that when you really run any business, but I think a martial arts business can be particularly funny. So I know you were telling me a story about some sparring issue you guys had with a
Yeah.
parent that got upset. Can you tell us about what happened?
So just young instructor, right? This is maybe 2006, 2007, around that time, and there's a intermediate belt that's really good. He's just kicking everyone's butt in sparring, and we're doing sparring drills, and he's just athletic. He's just a really strong, scrappy kid, right? And I was like, hey, let me partner up with you. Let me give you a little bit of a challenge, and obviously before I could put my gloves on, this guy was ready. He's rushing towards me, and I literally just put my hand out, and it goes right like by his cheek, and then next day we find out he has a black eye. Dad starts posting stuff all over our front storefront saying, "Hey, your instructor gave my son a black eye." So it was eventually calmed down, he eventually relaxed, but during that time my instructor was like, "Hey, what happened?" Right?
So
So
that wasn't your school at the time. That
that
was
was
when you
even
were
my
working.
school, yeah.
So like what I don't understand what happened. You didn't even have your gloves on. He charged you and you just put your hand out like a
Yeah,
punch and you ran into it.
yeah.
Wow. So why not just tell him to stop when he's running towards you? Hey, stop! What are you doing? Like I'm not ready
It
yet.
just happened so
It just
fast.
happens fast. Okay. And did he put signs up? You mean like paper
Literally paper, yeah,
signs?
little paper saying this
And he
happened.
like pasted it on the school's front window? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That is wild. So
So
did he keep training after that or did they quit?
I think afterwards he trained for a little bit longer. To be honest with you, it was such a long time ago.
Okay.
It was just shocking when we came the next day and
And
we
you
saw
see
that.
these
Yeah,
signs, your heart probably dropped. You're probably like, "Oh my god, this is
definitely.
like this is not good." So when you have a different, I think, model that we typically use for martial arts schools. So can you tell me a little bit about the model you use to open up schools or to run your schools?
Sure. I mean, and this is it evolves, right?
Of course,
But
yeah.
initially my goal was, hey, keep life really simple, somewhere between 1,500 to 1,600 square feet, one full timer, and maybe two part timers,
Okay.
right? Have 150 students, 200 students, have a high gross revenue where the first full timer is making really good money,
Uh-huh.
and the two part timers could be high school students or just really good assistants, and then you have leadership team maybe helping them out.
Sure.
He's making really good money. He's happy, and you're still have a solid net profit at the end of the day. So that's the original model we started with. Our first space was 1575, and my goal was, hey, can we get this location to 40,000?
Okay.
Right, and
So to you, that's like your benchmark. At the
yeah,
40K, you're good at this at the small school model,
yep,
which I think is great because a lot of schools will, they'll have expenses that are 60 or 70K, and they'll be like, "Oh, look, I'm at 80K a month," and they'll go, "We're six-figure school," or sorry, seven-figure school, and then they'll be like, "Okay, but your profit margins are so low,"
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So why did you pick that model to run your school?
So I saw, like my instructor's model was really big, and you need a well-oiled machine to run, 4,000 square feet, two floor models. It seemed like a labor intensive, right? Versus, keeping life simple, still making a positive impact. You're not having to worry about managing 500, 400 students. You're worrying about maybe 150, 200 students, which is doable, I think, with one full timer. Even if one full timer is in charge of 100 and the two part timers are in charge of the other 50, right? I just think it's um, the business we're in is relationship based business, right? So if we could have those tight, close relationships, um, it just felt like a better fit for me.
Okay. And what margins do you look for when you open a school? Are you looking at 30%, 40%? What
Yeah,
do you look for?
it just depends on the rent. It depends on the experience of the instructor. Depends on the supporting cast. But yeah, that's what we're trying to shoot for, anywhere from 30, 40%.
Okay.
Versus I know the big schools will shoot for, 15, 25%.
Right.
But I'd rather have, versus having that big model and having to stress about, hey, what staff is coming in. When you have those bigger schools, it's literally two schools in one,
Yeah.
right? Two mats running. In my opinion, that's like two different schools, right? So instead of doing that, I just kind of separated it.
So how do you find instructors for these schools?
So most of these instructors are home. All of them are homegrown, right? So first student, uh, he, he was with. I remember teaching his classes when he was a little dragon. So he started at 4, at my instructor's location, and he kind of came with me when I opened up my first location. Where he's like, "Hey, sir, I'm 14." I'm like, "Hey, man, happy birthday." He's like, "No, sir, I'm 14, so that means I could work."
That's great.
And then the other, our second school manager, she started when she was 7. I remember teaching her intro, remember meeting her parents, teaching her parents like kickboxing classes, and then she wanted a opportunity to help out at the first location. Then she just did really, really well there.
So these people reached out to you or like they came to you or did you talk about this in the
I
past
think I've
previously?
always planted the seed, right? Always planted the seed. I was like, hey, when you guys are ready, you let me know,
Mm.
right? When you're 14 or when you want to do something, reach out to me, and that's kind of what happened. Um,
And they're the full-time
They're the
employees.
full-time employees.
Okay.
So one runs our Cold Lake location, one runs our Aberdeen Mattawan location, and even the third location was a student that used to work for us at the first location.
Okay.
And he went graduated from college and he came back.
Mm.
Because originally the plan for the third location was me being on the mat a little bit more. And I'm like, hey, we're still, me and you are still young, right? We're in our 30s. Uh, Instead of just sitting back, we should be, where are we going to make the most impact? If we're on the mat, I don't think there's anyone better on the mat than the owner,
Right. For
right?
sure.
If we want to build like, going back to your brother, right? He was on the mat for 25 years, and thinking about how many locations have come out of that one location.
Right.
So if that's the mindset, then we should be on the mat,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Versus having a lot of the industry says, "Hey, get off the mat as soon as possible," and that's what I was taught in the beginning too. But like I said, that the it always shifts, right? Our perspective shifts over time. So the third location original plan was for me to be on the mat, make that a killer school.
It's like
Have
full-time, like you run it full-time.
Yeah,
Okay.
but then our third full timer came. He's like, "Hey, I would love the opportunity to do what these guys are doing." So then I kind of took a step back, and he graduated in June, and that's when we went to full time. And I now I'm focusing a little bit more on family.
Okay. All right, cool. So how how do you deal with when people leave or quit with the head instructor? Because you have like we operate with two full-time people, and if one of them leaves, it sucks.
Yeah.
We always have certified instructors that we try to replace them with, but it's still not fun to transition to someone new. With you have one person. So how do you deal with it if they're sick or they move on?
Sure. So usually we have a number two person in place. They might not be full time, but they might be 25, 30 hours, right? Or 35 hours. So we have that at 2 locations right now. We're working on getting that at the 3rd location. So if one of them right now, I haven't had to really no full-timers has left or no full-timers been fired, right? Um, and maybe just because I'm still young. I know all school owners go through that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe just because I'm still a young school, right? 2012 to 2023. It's only 11 years, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that young.
Yeah, not that young, but
Yeah.
still haven't had to experience where a head instructor wants to leave or where it comes to a point where I have to just because our relationships have been, I know the head instructor since he was 4. Now he's
Right.
26. The
Right.
second head instructor, she started with me when she was 7. Now she's 26. And the third location, he started when he was 7. I was teaching his classes, and now he's 25.
Yeah.
So just those relationships and that's the business we're in, right? Those relationships are so tight where um, if let's say I make a mistake, they know my heart's in the right place. If they make a mistake, I know their intentions are in the right place, right? Because the one thing that my coaches tell me, right? Obviously, my instructor and I work with Sam and a lot with coming to investing and things outside the industry. And he's, you never want to burn a relationship. You can always, I think, figure out a way to make it work. Obviously, in business, it's got to be black and white. Things have to happen, right? But if you've been having that relationship for 20 some years almost, you would figure out a way to make it work.
Mm. So what happens with if someone gets sick? Like the head instructor gets sick,
So
he
you have
doesn't
the
know.
you have the number 2 person, right?
Okay, so that they're capable of like running the school completely on their own.
Yep. The
S-
only the only difference might be maybe some of the business appointments are have to be rescheduled, right?
Okay, like
But if
intros or something like
yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah, that would be it. Otherwise, they could run classes and they could speak to parents, all that good stuff.
Do they also answer the phone, respond to emails,
So
texts?
usually we do that from pretty much 12 to 4, trying
Okay.
to knock all that stuff out. And then if it's during class time, then we have part-timers doing that while they're either running
They'll answer the
classes.
phone.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So now that you have 3 schools, what's your involvement like day to day? Like whether meetings or do you go into the
So
schools?
yeah, so I'm meeting with my team at least twice a week with the full timers. So that's usually Tuesday, Thursday from like 12 to 1:30, 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay.
And then the whole team, I'll meet with at least once a month. So that's the part timers. Well, we do a big staff training and meeting as well, just to see, hey, what are we doing for next month? How's everything going? Right, just touching base. But I'm mainly meeting with the full timers. Now, if let's say I'm also insurance, right? Let's say if the third location, since they don't have a number 2, if he is sick or something like that, I'll jump in to
Okay.
that location. And if even the second location, if something happens where both of them are sick, I'll jump in. And the first location, pretty much, I don't have to do that. But if I do, I don't mind. I actually enjoy jumping on the mat, right?
Yeah, I think it's way different when you have to do it every day versus like, oh, I do it want to fill in and
Yeah.
you probably really enjoy it when you get out
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
I still teach 1 day a week at one of the schools, the black belt class, and I'll do stuff here and there, but that's generally my consistent one because I enjoy it. It's just like fun,
Right.
right? I could have someone else teach it, but when I'm out there, I feel really good, exhilarated, and it reminds me of issues that either a teacher has or a student has. I feel like it makes me a better operator.
100%.
So now that the first one basically runs itself and you don't have to fill in as the insurance policy as often, and you're training everyone about 2 days a week. So how many hours would you say you put in a week to this like managing the schools at this point?
Sure. So we have, end of day reports that come in, right? I'm speaking to those guys probably. I see them at least twice a week, but we're communicating when we have business, right? So that's Monday through Thursday
So your school's only open Monday through Thursday
and Saturday.
and Saturday. Okay.
Yep. The first location we just added Friday, so we're open 6 days a week in the first location. Second location is Monday through Thursday and Saturday. Same thing with the third location.
Why do you do it that way?
It's just what we've done for so many years.
Okay.
Um,
You just like having Friday off or what?
I guess right. Ideally, I mean, we even played with the idea of having Sunday, Monday off, and just going Tuesday through Saturday, which worked well at the new location for a little bit. But a lot of people love that Saturday class,
Okay.
right? That's the only reason why we don't do Monday through Friday. Parents and dads too can make it if they can't make it during the week. So that's the only reason why this Saturday and a lot of our special events and stuff end up happening on Saturday.
On Saturday, all weekends.
Yep.
Yeah. So If you could go back and start this process over again, would you change or what would you change about either your model or how you went from one location to the next? What would you do differently?
It's a good question. So the location we went to, the first location is really affluent, but it's not very dense, right? So I would probably go to a more dense location. And that's what we did with number 2. That's what we did with number 3. So that'd be one thing off the bat. And two is spending more time on the mat, meaning not be in a rush to jump off the mat. Because, coaches back in that time was like, hey, focus on the business, not in the business. But I'm kind of having a little bit of perspective where if you look at, again, your brother, he was on the mat for 25 years. If you look at Dave Kovar, he's on the mat now, right?
Right.
Um, so if we want to have that influence, where are we the best at? We're best at if we want to build other leaders, if we want to empower our students. Imagine having a bench of, you know, 10 black belts or having a bench of 100 black belts, right? If we want 100 black belt, a bench of 100, we got to put that 20 years, 15, 20, 25 years on the mat.
That's amazing. I think it's so cool that you really want to have like your boots on the ground,
Right.
right? For each class. So when you're doing these meetings with them twice a week, do you have a certain agenda each meeting? Like
Yes.
how do you do that?
As soon as we do it, we go, we want our stats to be on the board, right? Before it starts. We'll run through any
Like new students, quits,
Yep,
stuff like that.
everything from new leads, how many intros did we have, how many conferences did we have, how many people signed up, how many did we lose this month, what was our net number, how many upgrades or renewals,
Do they know what the gross revenue is? Are
yeah,
they aware of that too? Okay.
what's our gross, where are we for the month, how much have we made in income this month, what's pending in billing, what's our total pending, what's our in-house. So it's like, 15, 20 items that they have to have on the whiteboard. We started meeting, we go over any wins, any victories for the month, and then it just an agenda of, hey, this is once stats are done, these are the upcoming events, and then I kind of open up to them like, hey, what's something that you guys want to go over.
Okay.
We also have them recently. We started just giving them some assignments like, reading certain books and then coming back and sharing what they learned. So
Mm,
that's been just getting them in the right mindset.
okay, cool. And usually these are 2 hours or less.
Sometimes 1 hour, sometimes hour and a half. Rarely we'll go 2 hours. Sometimes we've done where I'll train since I know a little bit of jiu-jitsu. I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu last year, so we'll do a little bit of jiu-jitsu for an hour, and then we'll meet for
You
an hour.
said you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu and you know a little bit of
I
jiu-jitsu.
very little jiu-jitsu.
I feel that way after training for like 4 years
I
for
think
my black belt.
in
I
jiu-jitsu
didn't
you
blue
always
belt.
feel in jiu-jitsu you always feel like you know very little.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like the more I know, the less I know almost. Like the more I do it, I'm like, damn, I don't know everything. So do you teach jiu-jitsu at your schools too or no?
No, no.
No.
I
Have you
just do
thought
it
about that?
I've done it before. But it's just hard to have 2, 3 different programs under one roof, right?
Yeah,
So I do it for myself. I love training traditional martial arts. I love, hitting pads, but I also love, grappling. So
cool.
I do it for myself and I'll share it with my team. And we do it with some of the adults. So for the adult program, we have Krav. That's what I was saying, 2, 3 different programs. So for kids, we do karate. For adults, we do Krav right now. And then to add another one, it'd be too much.
Too much.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things I love about training in another style is it makes my martial arts better. It also makes my teaching of martial arts better. Do you feel the same way because you step out of your style you used to?
So you're a student again,
Yeah.
right? And if you're a good student, this is what I tell my team. If you can be a good student, you can be a good teacher, right? You can be how c- you can't be a leader, you can't be a teacher if nothing to give,
Right.
right? You got to have something inside of you that you want to give. How does that happen? How do you get something that's inside of you, something you've learned by being a good student?
Mm. Okay, cool. And then I know for you, when you look for new locations, you said now you look for obviously like affluent. You want a community it's gonna have a higher income, but you also look for density. So
Yeah.
how exactly do you go about finding these locations? You just know because you live in the area, or do you look at like demographic
Yeah, everything
information?
from elementary schools to Wikipedia to um, there's so many websites you can look on for demographics, but mainly I'm looking for, are there families there? Are there a lot of kids there? Are there a lot of elementary schools? Because the first location we're at, we only have one elementary school. We went to second location and we have like 8 of them. So totally different, right? We were able to grow a lot faster at location number 2 than we were at
Because there's just
location
more kids.
just more kids. Obviously, there's more competition, like, in our first location,
Sure.
we're the only, school in that town, right?
Okay.
No, there's well water, there's no grocery store in town.
Wow.
It's Cold Snake is really affluent area, so people have second homes, they have horses, that kind of feeling. Where our second location is in Mattawan, and border of Mattawan, Aberdeen, and there's literally a school across from us, behind us, to the left of us, to the right of us. So there's definitely more competition, but that lets you know that there is a market for martial arts here.
Right. So do you rent usually? Do you purchase?
Yeah, just rent
Okay. Usually in a shopping center or standalone building?
a shopping center.
Shopping center. Okay,
And
cool.
not I don't go for like the A plus, grocery anchored stores. I want to go for more like a B plus, B minus, that type of location, because a lot of our traffic is, how many walk bys have we gotten? Not many,
Not
right?
many. Okay.
So most of our traffic is usually from our website, usually from referrals, internal event, external event. I feel like every student you've earned, whether it's through you paying high rent, right? Or you going out in the community, or you bringing them into your school, right?
Right.
So whatever, let's say someone's got 4 or 500 students, you've earned that 4 or 5 for either by your labor intensive marketing or the money you spent to get them in, right?
Yeah, and your location. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can spend the money on the marketing or you can spend the money on location.
100%.
A lot of times you probably have to do a combination of both,
Yeah.
right? But I know at some of our locations, people walk in all the time. Others, they never get a walk in and they have to run a lot of more money on Facebook ads. They have to do more community centric events to get people in. But you're absolutely right. Like you earn every
Every
one of
student.
those people. Yeah, it's pretty rare you get someone just like fall in your lap. But it's gonna happen here and there.
Yeah.
People just call and sign up and it's very easy. But a lot of times it's like you doing a million things to get one person. Right.
Right. It's all based on, your actions, based on you are where you are, based on questions you ask yourself and the actions you take,
Right.
right? Whether it's in business, whether it's in your finances, whether in your relationship, it's the quality of questions you ask yourself, right? That comes directly from, not from me, but from Tony Robbins.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, and obviously you take a lot of influence from other business, either business martial arts business owners or maybe someone like Tony Robbins. I think that's really cool, and I think all the best business owners in general are always looking around and saying, "What are other people doing? How can I make that work for me?" And that's one of the things that I learned growing up so much. And my brother was a mentor to me in that way. It was like Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar,
Jim Rohn.
yeah, Jim Rohn, exactly. And like all these behemoths who would write books or have audio tapes and spend so much time listening to that. So when you open up a new school, what's like your number one priority to fill up the merit? Like, what do you use as your number one strategy to bring in new members?
It's a great question. So, we'll do a lot of external marketing. So we'll try to get, if we can be part of a church event, if we can be part of a daycare, if we can be part of any town day coming up, can we be part of the local rec program? Anything we can do to get involved in the community, pretty much, right? We'll do a push on our website and Facebook. We'll do a grand opening party, right? And the goal for me again is 150 students, right? Have good quality students at a nice premium price, and you don't need a lot of students if that's the model, right?
Right,
Versus if you're trying to, like, do you want to be the Apple or do you want to be the Walmart?
right,
And they're both good models. There nothing's wrong with that, right? And uh, the goal for me is just to stay, keep it simple, right? Just like my personal life, I just want to keep it simple. I don't want to go um, where we're focusing on all this marketing and we're not taking care of our students,
right.
you know?
Yeah, and I like to think of it as, do I want to be like a Hyundai dealership where it's like really cheap and you have a lot of members, or like a Mercedes where it's like nicer quality and more of a premium to get involved. And I always think, okay, I'd rather have the boutique Mercedes, and nothing wrong with having a Hyundai dealership. That's great. It's just like
Volume.
whatever you like.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
do you
whatever you
like more volume or do you like more that boutique model?
yeah, boutique model. So you prefer boutique model.
Yes.
What do you like about that so much?
Again, it's just you have less less people to deal with,
Okay.
right? Now, if
Fewer
you're
spinning plates to manage.
yeah, fewer staff, fewer people there, right? And the influence you're gonna have on those students, I think, is different versus, you have a class full of 30, 40 students versus you have a class full is 15. It's half, literally half, right? Instead of 30, it's 15. So the energy, you can pick up on things, right? I know, if you're a good instructor, you can probably run 25 students. But even after that, 30 students, 50 students, it gets to be a lot, right? Something's
I'll
gonna
have
get
to.
missed.
So, what's like your maximum class size you allow?
Around 20 students.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you have a 20 student class. That's good. Perfect. Yeah.
solid. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of the tipping point where, I mean, you can have a class of 40 or 50. And like you said, if you're a rock star instructor, be fine.
Right.
But I feel like in terms of like one on one, getting people to have one on one attention, that's pretty much a good solid point. Like you have 20, you can still talk to people, still have a big class feel,
Right.
good energy. So I'm with you there. So when you have, let's say you do a church event or something, what are you doing at that event to collect leads or to turn them into trials, to turn them into
So
members?
I'll give you an example. If we're at a town day, right? We'll have a prize wheel, we'll have prizes, plus give our 2 week, we'll do a 2 week free, right? The goal
So the
there
prizes are separate than the
is
two
separate,
week
right?
free.
So
What are the prizes? What do you give out?
it could be a headband, it could be a pair of nunchucks, it could be a free
You give
uniform.
away nunchucks to like random people?
But let me explain it, right?
Yeah.
The way it works is they have to come into the school
Okay.
to
Okay.
get the
Got it.
prize.
Okay. Cool.
So they automatically get the 2 weeks for free.
Yeah.
We set up their appointment, right? So we've done it where we've given those prizes. Then after that, we've done it where it's 1 week, 2 week, two free classes, 4 week classes on the prize wheel,
Yeah.
right? So we've done both, and both have gotten mixed results. Sometimes it just depends on the event, right? It depends on what type of town day it is, how's the weather, so many
Yeah.
variables, right?
Time of year.
Time of year for sure. But when we were giving out those prizes, people were actually showing up. So that's the reason why we were giving prizes out, because we wanted to get them in the door
Yeah. And you set up the appointment at that table, like right
at that
then.
table.
Yeah, I think that's so important because we didn't do that for years. We would just collect leads and then we try to set up those appointments later. But also, why are we doing all these extra steps? Why don't we just, when they're there, like we have an opening on Tuesday or Thursday, which one works best for you? We have an opening at 5 or 7, which one works better for you? And then half those appointments, at least for us, typically don't show up.
Right.
So at least half. So if we get, 15 appointments, if we get 7 to show up, we're like, all right, cool, that's great. But sometimes I remember one time we set up like 60 appointments in one event. It was just an amazing event. I was there running it, sweating my ass off, working super hard. And I'm like, this is gonna be the greatest thing ever. Like, we're gonna have so many students this month. And I think we had, like 14 people show up and like, 6 of them enroll. And I was like, damn, that wasn't as great as I thought it was gonna be. But then again, that's 6 new members that we earned that we wouldn't have had otherwise
Right.
unless I would have done that.
Right.
And I've definitely gotten better at getting to set up the appointment on the spot and also letting people know that, hey, you're gonna get a text from me. Then the text is gonna be from a 856 number. So when you get it, just know that it's not spam, it's really me.
Right.
So I kind of let them know and they go, okay, cool. Now they expect it, don't see the text and just delete it right away. Especially now if you get a text from a random number, like especially you own a business, so you probably get it a lot. Where you just get tons of spam texts like all the
Right.
time,
Right.
like political or hey, I want to buy real estate from or something. So you need to let people know, hey, this is gonna be me, because otherwise they just delete it right away.
Right.
Uh, we're
So
just
what
like,
we try to do is we try to get them to save our school number in their phone.
oh, okay.
And
You just say save it right now.
yeah, we're gonna shoot you a text to confirm your appointment. This is the number. I believe they had one of our staff members had like, I think it's called a VR card or something, where they can literally scan it and then our contact gets shared. I haven't done it personally, but those guys have done it where what we'll try to do is we'll try to email them because we want to put it in our Google Calendar. So they'll get an email confirmation and then they also get a text reminder. And we know that, like you said, you get 60 leads, maybe 20% of them will come from a live event, but it's
Yeah.
still worth doing because then those are 6 students you didn't have before,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
if you look at the lifetime value of it, if we're going to keep going, if you look at the lifetime value of a student, if that one of those guys makes the black belt, then the 4 or 5 hours you spent is well worth it.
Yeah, well worth it.
Yeah.
And they're gonna hopefully refer 1 to 2 members of the course of their training,
Yep.
right? Depending how good your program is. So it's always worth the effort. I think where people go wrong is when they just try to put up ads and that's it. They don't do anything else. They don't do uh, any other community-based marketing or any other organic strategies
Yeah.
for growing their school, and they just hope people show up.
Yeah. So one of the guys or one of the coaches I've worked with is Stephen Oliver, and he talks about having the Parthenon approach, having 20 things each bring you one, so having 10 things each bring you 2, 3 students. So I think part of us being business, you always need someone you need a coach,
Yeah.
right? So I have Sam as my coach for investing, and I've worked with Stephen Oliver Just Smith as my coach on our business.
Cool. I actually, he was on the podcast a couple weeks ago,
Cool.
so I'll have an episode with him too. So tell me about outside the martial arts school. So you have your income. Obviously, you're a good saver, which is great. And then you obviously like to invest the money that you have. Um, that's not part of your daily needs or whatever. So, is there a certain percentage of your income that you look to invest or save? And what do you invest that money in?
Sure. So again, this is information I got from my coaches, right? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of sharing, this comes directly from Sam, and he would say, save 10% of your gross revenue. That would be a good goal, right? So if hypothetically your school did $10,000, try to move 1,000 into your investment brokerage account, right? And then after that, it's really just based on your risk tolerance. Like, do you want to just buy, ETFs and index funds, which is the overall market, and you're just investing in the market, or do you have a higher risk tolerance and you want to buy individual stocks? Like for me, I have a higher risk tolerance, so I'm okay with buying just Apple, or, trying to find the best companies on the planet.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what I do. I'll try to move 10% of my gross revenue, and then I'll take that and I'll deploy it into what I feel are some of the best top companies on the planet.
How often do you do that? Do you check your
Every
account?
month. Every month.
Once a month, you rebalance, or you'll sell some things and buy some things,
Yeah.
or you'll just buy more.
So most of the time I'm buying more.
Okay.
And then, so I have two different accounts mainly. One is a long-term account where it just buys,
Is that
right?
like a retirement account, or is that totally separate?
So in that account, there's one that's a brokerage account, one that's a retirement account.
Okay.
And then another account is for more active trading. So one is long and one is more short-term to medium.
Okay.
Right?
And that's more like the fun one for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're both fun. I mean,
They're both fun.
yeah.
Okay. Even the ones that are long-term holds, those are fun for you?
I mean, if you look at back where, I got serious investing in like 2015. That's when I started working with Sam. Before that, even when I was working for my instructor, I started like a index fund, like a mutual fund, 2011. And I would see it like once a year.
Yeah.
But now I'm more interested in it, so I see it more regularly,
Mhm.
right? Um, and it's just something that, everyone has different interests, right? Everyone has different hobbies, and I just think it's powerful for us to be able to take advantage of who's better at making money, me, you, or, you know Jeff Bezos, or
Right.
or Mark Zuckerberg, or like, these guys just know how to make money way way faster than we do, and we get to ride that boat.
Yeah. So, what is, like, your best stock or best buy you think you've had so far in terms of investment versus, like, your worst buy?
I think that's a good question, but I think you have to look at it as, um, how long have you lasted in the market,
Okay.
right? Because it's not so much the, hey, you bought this stock or you bought this. It's more about the compounding effect over the next 40 years, 30 years, right? That's the biggest takeaway, that, I wish the younger, or if we're the young generation as school owners,
Yeah.
but the next generation, maybe he's your staff at 25, 26, where they have 50 years, right? 40
Right.
years. And if they start now, think about the compounding effect. So I don't think it's about the one pick. It's about
Well, I'm
getting,
just curious though, like what's obviously I'm not talking about what's the best strategy to
yeah,
become long-term wealthy, because then it'd
yeah,
be obviously buy and hold for a long time.
right.
But I'm just curious for you, have you bought like this one stock one time? They're like, oh my God, I made 90 grand in a month. I don't know how that even happened. Or
Right.
like, have you been like super lucky in one spot? You're like, oh my God, this was amazing.
I mean, I focus really, if to take the most risks, you focus on tech companies.
Okay.
So like Tesla's done really well, Facebook's done really well. Companies that people, some people know and some people haven't even heard about. Um, those are the two that I like.
Those are the ones you like the most.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the one that's like hit you the worst? Have you had one that's gone bankrupt or you just lost a lot of money on and then eventually sold it?
Yeah, there was a Chinese coffee company. I forget the name, but
Okay.
that went bankrupt. Um, The other one, I wasn't heavily in this one. It was just a small position. Was Voyager. I know
Voyager. Yeah,
you
yeah,
had.
yeah. Yeah, bring up sore subjects.
Sorry.
Appreciate that, MJ. No, it's all good.
Those are the only two I remember that have gone bankrupt, right?
Okay.
And for me, the coffee one, it was supposed to be like the Starbucks of China. That one was a harder hit than Voyager, but you learn from those. Those are good like gut punches, so it doesn't happen again.
Huge, huge, huge learning
Yeah,
experience. Can I ask you how much you lost from the coffee company? Do you remember?
uh, probably 30, 40, maybe
Okay.
more, somewhere around there.
And was this like an overnight thing? Like you like looked at your account and it was bankrupt? You're like, holy crap.
Um, so it had bad news, but yeah, it moved. Once
Very
that news
quickly.
comes out, it moves fast. Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing much you can do there. Even if you have stop losses in place and stuff like that, not much you can do there.
So what's like the best thing you think you've done for your businesses, for your portfolio of three martial arts schools? What do you feel like is the best thing you've done over the last decade?
As far as taking the business to the next level,
Yeah,
or
yeah, or just like, hey, I'm really happy I made this decision, or like, hey, I feel like I did this really, really well, and that's why I'm able to maintain the schools and run them efficiently.
sure, I think if you can get your personal life in order, business is easy, right? So just trying to keep yourself motivated, trying to keep yourself, dedicated to the business and the martial arts aspect, just trying to balance those two out. I think I've done a pretty good job of still being able to, train jiu-jitsu, get to your black belt. So you're still a good student, and at the same time, you're working on growing your business. Then you're working on, constantly being a student of learning about investing, because the ultimate goal, like I think I'm still in the process, right? I'm still working on it. But what if I can get my investment income to match or replace my martial arts school income? Right. That's the goal.
Right. Very cool. So do you look at that number like every day or like once a month? You're like, okay, here's where I'm at. I have another 70% more increased passive income to get where I need to go. Like how often do you actually investigate that or look at it?
So I have a 10-year plan, right? So
Okay.
I look at a 10-year plan. Where do I want to be in 10 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? And based on that, just the goal is push at least 10%, if not more, right? If you get a pay in full, you get something you're not expected, you got a huge graduation, you just push that to long-term savings,
Just
right?
long-term savings.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And the thing there is that now you're creating it's like creating another business,
Yeah.
right? Without having overhead, without having another staff member, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a powerful tool, um, because that's the one thing where there's not a lot of people involved. It's just you, right? If you think of any other business, real estate, you got tenants, right? You got weather. There's so much stuff. Any other business, there's people involved, right? With the market, it's just you.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think that's you're back to your question,
Yeah.
and I want to get a good answer. I think the fact that I went from being a good student with my instructor, and then taking the risk to open up the business, and then from the business to be able to invest, I think that's what I've done pretty well.
Very, very cool. And I think you're gonna inspire a lot of people who are listening to this now, especially since your model isn't focused on having one giant school, right? You're like, I have one school and keep it small and keep it lean and mean. And then I'll open up another one when I'm ready and there's someone there and not like forcing it
Yeah,
or you don't have enough
I
staff.
felt like I forced the third one a little
A
bit,
little bit. Okay.
and it turned out pretty good so far.
It turned
So
out pretty good so far.
I
Okay.
I don't know if I would open up more by myself.
Yeah.
I told my team, hey, if you guys want to open up more schools, I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need more than, one or two schools to do really well in martial arts. As long as you keep yourself humble, keep your lifestyle simple. I think that's where a lot of us, even including myself, like we're trying to impress the person next to us or our neighbor, right? We don't need to worry about that. It's can we keep our lifestyle simple? And one school can generate, if you look at a doctor, a lawyer, those incomes easily. If you got two schools, in my opinion, if you got two, three schools, you should be, your net worth should be close to 1 million.
Right. Right.
You should be a millionaire when you have solid businesses in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's cool to look at net worth too if you haven't done it. Like I
Yeah.
think I looked at mine maybe like 3 years ago. I went to like net worth calculator or something on Google and
Mint.com.
Mint. Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
Mint.com is a really good app. It tracks your net worth, from when you started it. So It's a great app if you don't have one.
Yeah, maybe I
You know,
should use that
that's
mint.com. Cool. Yeah, I don't use that. I just like I used a random internet calculator one time. I was like, huh. So what's something people don't know about you, MJ?
um I think the stuff we went over, like, I
What's
was
something they don't know about you? What's something people don't know about you? Like how do you spend your free time when you're outside of martial arts and not investing? What are you
sure.
doing?
I love documentaries. So Netflix has a cool documentary on the life of us, starting from 4 billion years ago to where we got here now. So I love history, love documentaries.
Have
Um,
you seen Chimp Empire?
I have not.
Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that
Do you
is.
like nature documentaries?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you've seen like Planet Earth and stuff like
Yep,
that
yep,
with
yep.
David Attenborough. So this one is a nature documentary, and it follows a tribe of chimps in Ngogo, which is in Africa, and it is so freaking good. Like I've seen a million nature documentaries. I love them, and how well this is shot. I could not believe the shots they got on camera and the quality.
Awesome.
So
What
highly
was it called?
recommend Chimp Empire
Okay.
on Netflix. Super good. It's like 4 episodes, and they track like the lives and the power struggles of these chimps. That's super cool.
Yeah, so that doing stuff like that relaxes me. Traveling, been to Brazil for jujitsu, been to Thailand, so being able to travel and be able to not have to worry, having good relationship with your staff, and being able to travel, right?
Do you do anything with your staff, like retreats or go to dinner with them and stuff like that?
Yeah, so obviously end of the year we'll do a cool staff dinner. There's times where we'll be taking them, to special trainings in Florida and California. I've taken them to Tony Robbins events.
Oh, cool.
So throughout the years, we've done a lot.
Okay. Do you feel like they appreciate that stuff, or they like, oh, this is like a work event?
I think some do, all right,
Some do.
right.
Okay.
And then when I feel the energy isn't right, then I'll cut back on that stuff,
Okay.
Um, but I think they do appreciate it.
Mm,
We try to make it special, we make sure that they're taken care of and they got what they need.
Okay, great. So what do you feel like is your if you had to pick one book that was like the most influential for you for your business career,
That's
what
tough.
what book would you choose? Yeah, just give us one.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay, Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's honestly I think that would be my answer too,
yeah.
because I think I read that when I was in college and I remember reading it outside of the like my apartment and being, oh my god, like this is how to live your life. This is just makes sense.
It's not what you know, it's who you know, right?
Yeah,
And if we look back at our life, right, and think about if your brother wasn't that mentor to you, where would you be, right?
it'd be way different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same thing with if I didn't have my instructor, and then if I didn't bump into Sam in 2015, I'd just be passively investing, right? Which is not a bad thing, but it's like think about how small decisions lead to these big outcomes, right?
right.
And it's not like we designed it, right? Sometimes these things happen, like good things happen, and sometimes bad things happen. Um, but it's crazy how it's these small little things that add up to these amazing outcomes.
Mm. So complete this sentence. I feel most alive when
Running a killer class.
running a killer class. That's when you feel the best.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how often are you training in jujitsu, like personally?
Like two times a week, two,
Do-
3 times a week.
Okay, cool. Have you been that way like from
For
beginning to black belt, like 2 to 3 days a week?
no, so white belt is definitely training more, right?
Okay.
White blue belt is training more. I was, 2009, I competed at the PAMs in California.
Okay, cool.
So I was definitely there's time where I was training a lot more, but I just feel like with work, with business, and with family and stuff, I think just to maintain twice a week is where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, I'm not a black belt. I'm nowhere near your skill level. But I feel like 2 to 3 days. If I get three, I'm great. If I get two, I feel pretty good. One,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Bleh." But if I get two, and I'm definitely not at the same pace as other people that come 4 or 5 days a week. But like, I'm not gonna be in any competition. At least not right now.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
Right? I do it for fun. I think when I'm there, I'm like, I feel like I'm a playful child, just like going to like this wrestling match, not like I need to train for life or death in this moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Different journey, right?
Yeah.
Different you're looking for different things. Like for a lot of people, jiu-jitsu can be that competitive side. And for some people it could be stress relief and a chance to, be a student again.
Yeah, or just for cardio,
Yeah.
right? Like, what do actually people want? What job would you not do Even if you made $1,000,000 a month, what's like one job that you would never do?
Something to do with politics.
Politics, okay.
Yeah,
So if you do politics, you're like, "No, I'm out." You don't wanna what makes you say that?
I just never liked it. Just never into it, never interested in it, you know? I feel like you have to do a lot of running around, right?
Yeah. So next one is I'm gonna ask you a couple just random off the cuff topics that, uh, people get to know you a little bit better. So, what's your favorite snack?
Snickers fun size.
The fun size?
Yeah.
Because the big why not the
I
big
just
ones?
just I don't know, they taste better. The fun
The small ones
size.
taste better. That's funny. What do you feel like is the most embarrassing moment of your life so far?
I don't know. Mm. I mean, I'm sure there's so many, right? Um,
Nothing sticks out?
there's times where, I've rushed and this is when I was working for my instructor and we'd write, "Hey, trial coming in." I'd write trail,
Okay,
right?
that's it.
So
That's the most embarrassing moment of your
or
life.
like, because remember English is my second language
Okay, yeah.
and I would get a lot of words confused. I'll write instead of Amanda, I'll write Amanda, right? So like stuff
Okay.
like that.
Okay, alright, and that probably because English is second language, you'd be really sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone else could easily make that same mistake. Uh, okay, next one. What's one idea you think the majority of people get wrong about you?
Yeah. I I don't know what they're I don't know what they're thinking. That'd be nice to know, right?
Yeah,
But I'm sure some people maybe think, maybe arrogant, or I know maybe they get a feeling like I know what I'm doing. I think that just comes from me not being as open with everybody, right?
okay.
Um, or maybe they feel, yeah, I don't know, right? I
Mm,
wouldn't know how they feel, but if someone does feel that way, then it's probably because I don't open up to everybody. Right?
yeah,
Even this interview, I'm sharing a lot of stuff with you that, most people probably won't know.
yeah, cool, cool, and I feel like for me, what people mostly get wrong is they think, like, I have it all figured out or everything's working great, and it's not. There's always fires I'm putting out, always stress behind the scenes. I'm opening up a newer school right now where I'm trying to bring in a instructor from Johannesburg, from South Africa. And like that process is so stressful. And while that's happening, I have the other schools that are like, this thing goes wrong, and this thing goes wrong, and this thing goes wrong. And I'm like, ah. And it's crazy. But then on social media, it'll be like, oh, I did this cool thing or that cool thing. Like, that's great. But like, that doesn't necessarily show the behind the scenes of what's happening. Like, I have stress just like everyone else. One of the things that I talked about with one of my instructors because he was very stressed about one of the kids' classes he was teaching. And he's like, "Hey, the class is getting bigger. It's like 8 or 10 kids in it now. It's new." And he's like, "I just don't feel like I'm teaching a good class. I get out of control sometimes." This is a 3 to 6 year olds, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's gonna happen." And I understand why you're frustrated, but this is all part of the learning process. And
Right.
I know what you're feeling 'cause I felt that way before, but, there was something else going wrong too, like, the payment processor wasn't working and, like, something else, and I'm like, "Everything you're saying, I know is stressing you out. Just know that I've done it before, and we've been in the same situation. Everything will be fine. We just have to problem solve." Right? And the analogy I told him was like, imagine, like, you take out a T-shirt from your drawer, and it's completely wrinkled, like, you didn't fold it correctly, you probably didn't dry it
Yeah.
correctly, and then you see it like, "Oh my god, this shirt is I can't wear it." It's like, well, you take out the iron and you start
Fixing it.
yeah, you start ironing out the wrinkles,
Yep.
and the longer you do it, the nicer the shirt's gonna be, and then eventually, when you have that same situation again, you're not like, "Oh my god, look how wrinkled the shirt is." Like, "Ah, I just gotta iron it," right? So it's the same thing, like, you just gotta problem solve as issues come up.
No, makes sense. And then, like behind the scenes, there's a part of being a business. There's always something that you could focus on or stress about. Like just like you, there's nights where we don't sleep well because you're thinking about this issue, or someone said this, or some parent said that, or whatever it is, right? I think that's just us being passionate about the business that we run, right? Since going to a lot of events, there's a lot of people that separate their business from themselves, right? Where school owners, I think most of the time, they feel like they are the business, right? They're very personally
So you think that's
attached.
bad?
I don't know if that's bad. I think it can be bad, right? It can be bad at certain points where if you're not sleeping and you're thinking about it and it's taking away from your family, that's the bad side. The good part is you're so passionate about it, you care about it so much that it allows you to push further than the average person would,
Right.
right? So there's pros and cons to both sides. It just trying to balance out the bad side, the con side of how you could is there a way you can turn the switch off in your brain? It's hard, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I struggle with, right? Because I'm always thinking about how can we do this better, or hey, did we do this right, or etc.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many paranoid thoughts I've had in the shower where like everything I'm doing is wrong, everything is bad, I'm terrible at all of this.
Right,
But that's just part of the journey. You just got to keep on going, and it sucks sometimes. But you also have the benefits of when things are going great. You feel
right,
like you can do anything. I interviewed someone on the podcast who works with professional athletes, and what she said was, I asked her like, what's the thing she's learned working with professional athletes, and she said that when they come on board, they are already doing well in whatever sport they're doing, and now they're working on their foundation or some other area of interest, and they wouldn't have become a professional athlete unless they were the cream of the crop, right?
right.
And they got there against all odds. And a lot of those are like people who do amazingly well, like they're the top of the top, right? In the sport. And she said like when they come on board and they're explaining things, they just have the mindset that anything is possible. And like when people say, "Oh, we can't do that in that time frame," they're like, "Oh, we definitely can." And like, there's no limit that they have because they've
Their
already
belief system,
accomplished so much.
their
Yeah,
belief system's different,
yeah,
right?
totally different.
And that's what makes you a good what separates you from your head instructor, your belief system.
Yeah,
You believe all these things are possible where he might not, going through having that analogy of that wrinkled t-shirt, right?
yeah,
You've been through it and your belief system allows you to be like, hey, we can overcome this and get past this, versus he's believes like, man, this is not good.
right. Yeah,
So I think a big part of is how can we get our belief systems to improve is who are we hanging out with, what books are we reading, who are we listening to, right? That goes back to like the ABCs of what we talked about before with Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and um, Les Brown. You know who Les
yeah,
Brown?
yeah,
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 and dreaming big, right? If we have a big enough dream that it could impact your staff, impact your students, and at the same time, can we stay humble? Can we have a simple life, right? It's hard balancing those two.
yeah,
Where if you're exposed to those guys, you want the Ferrari and the Lambo and the, you know, crazy house. But it's, I think, finding that happy balance between can you make a positive impact and at the same time be able to live a simple life.
yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard, and I think it's important to look at have the right type of mentor for what you want, and stop. Don't try to copy what someone else does. Like you try to copy me, it's just not going to work out for you. You try to copy MJ, it's not going to work for you exactly. You got to figure out what works for you. Like your model, some people would never do that. They want
Yeah.
to have a school that has 500 people in it or 1,000 people in it,
Yeah.
right? But that's the model that works for you, and you like that model, so that's what you stick to, right? And like for me, even the mentors I look up to. So do you have kids?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. How many kids do you have?
I have one daughter.
One daughter. So I don't have kids, and like, so when I look at mentors, let's say, for instance, like the most popular right now, like Alex Ramosi, right?
Right.
He doesn't have kids. I see him as a mentor, and I feel like he helps me by watching his videos? Absolutely. But he doesn't have necessarily the life that I want to live,
Right.
right? I want to have kids. I'm just not there yet. So he's not going to be my all-in-one mentor. He might help me with one sliver of something, but then someone else might help me in some other area,
Right.
right? And I make sure that I don't let him impact my thoughts in that other area because that's not what I look to him for, right?
No, and that's for most people that's hard to look at that in that perspective where maybe they see that like especially when we're coming up in the martial arts, maybe you see your instructor as that's the way for everything versus maybe that's the way for business or that's the way for martial arts, and then you have someone else for business, you have someone else for relationships,
Right.
etc., right?
Yeah.
It's hard to sometimes you want to find that one person but he's human too
Yeah.
or
Exactly.
she's human too, right?
Yeah.
Just like we are. I mean, there's going to be certain things we're good at and there's going to be a lot of things we're not good at.
Right.
And going back to our instructors, right? As long as they're doing 70-80% of the right things, versus trying to be 100 like, "Hey, I would do it this way." That's some growing pains I think a lot of school or even myself have to go through,
Yeah, they're never
like
gonna do 100% of what you
yeah,
tell them to,
yeah.
never.
Like, in the beginning, I was like, "Hey, this is the way I would do it. I want you to do it exactly this way." And then slowly, I'm like, "Hey, as long as they're doing 80% of what I want, I'm happy with that."
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for coming on here. I really appreciate having you. And it's fun to talk to someone who doesn't have, has their own model of like how they like to run things, like has figured out that part of it for themselves. So if someone wants to reach out to you and find you, how do they find you?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook,
What's your Instagram?
Sensei MJ Singh. That's it.
Okay, cool. And can you spell that for us?
Sure. Sensei Sensei MJ and my last name Singh Singh.
Cool. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Matthew Brenner with Double Your Dojo. If you want to grow your martial arts school without having to depend on ads or a fancy website, you want to be able to grow organically and earn your new members, reach out to me, Matthew at doubleyourdojo.com or on Instagram. You can ask me any questions at Black Belt Brenner 1. Thank you.